USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Learn more and get a quote at usaa.com/bundle. Restrictions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Heyday. Feeling stressed? Take a moment for yourself with Heyday. Stroll through rows of golden wheat, tend to cute barnyard animals, and discover the joys of a digital farm retreat. You don't have to hop in a car or catch a plane. Escape to the farm at the tap of a finger. With Heyday, you're not just tending to a farm, you're tending to yourself. Heyday. Search Heyday, that's Hay space DAY, in your favorite app store. Heyday is a free-to-play mobile game and offers optional in-app purchases and random rewards.
Hilton brings you new ways to stay, with experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
Is anyone out there?
Another salesperson enduring the endless search. Exhausting. If you want to get right to the right conversations, you need LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Whether you're looking for new leads or strengthening existing relationships at your top accounts, get right to the right conversations with LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Try LinkedIn Sales Navigator now with a free 60-day trial at linkedin.com/trial. That's linkedin.com/trial.
Terms and conditions apply!
Some things work better together, like NARS's Soft Matte Complete Concealer and Radiant Creamy Concealer. Soft Matte Complete Concealer erases and blurs imperfections with full coverage. Then, Radiant Creamy Concealer evens and brightens with a luxurious texture and radiant finish. 2 concealers, 1 flawless look. Perfect for a no-foundation base. NARS, better together. Visit Ulta to shop now.
Hey all you heroes, hawks, heralds, crows, pirates, and wardens. Welcome to the Dragon Age Lorecast, where we unpack, discuss, and galaxy brain about all the lore behind the Dragon Age series.
We are so excited to bring you this podcast. Every episode, we'll be talking about a different topic in the Dragon Age universe, from character deep dives to exalted marches and elven gods. We will cover it all.
There will be spoilers. And always remember, swooping is bad.
Hello and welcome to the Dragon Age Lorecast, where we talk about Dragon Age and its lore. I'm one of your hosts, Austin, also known as Teacup.
And I'm your other host, Shelby or Shecup.
Yes, you are, and we are here for a character deep dive, which we have not done in, well, I guess we did one a couple weeks ago.
I mean, I think it's been like a few months.
Yes, our last one was Blackwall.
I can't remember how long it's been, but yes, we're back with another character deep dive.
Yes, this is maybe a fan favorite, maybe not a fan favorite. I really like this character.
I don't know. I feel like I can't determine whether or not this would be like a person that the fandom enjoys and likes, because I don't particularly care for this person. And so I don't know. I just have a hard time. I feel like we're talking about Aveline today. I feel like she's one of those characters that just kind of are mid in Dragon Age, and I think those are few and far between, so it's kind of hard.
Yeah, I can see that. There are things that Aveline does that I don't like, that we'll talk about in there. But as overall, I think that I appreciate in DA2 that she is her own brand of chaos, but she is not she's like the mom friend of the group, but she doesn't fall all into those stereotypes, which I appreciate.
Yeah, and like her and Varric are the most quote unquote put together. of the team.
I can't believe that Varric and Put Together get to be put in the same sentence.
I mean, I would say he's pretty well put together, to be fair. I actually think he puts on the persona of chaos. I don't think he's very chaotic. I mean, he's got a very, very famous and successful career with his writing. He's got a pretty renowned reputation in the city where he comes from. And then in Inquisition, he goes on to, become like beyond just a writer and actually famous in Thedas with the Inquisition. So, I mean, yeah, he like is a little chaotic and ridiculous, but I don't think he's that out there at all.
That's fair. I'll yield to that.
But this is not a Varric episode, so let's get back to Aveline.
All right. Well, I guess we'll start where we always start.
With the fun facts?
With the fun facts.
Okay. It's like, I don't know what that means. So Aveline's heritage is actually pretty interesting. So she is Orlesian by birth, due to her father, but he moved the family to Ferelden, where she spent most of her childhood. And then, as we know, with the games, they go to the Free Marches pretty young in her adulthood. So she spends most of her adulthood in the Free Marches, specifically Kirkwall. And so she's kind of like all over the place. And I do think that there is a codex entry perhaps that basically says she struggles a little bit with her identity, but that she comes to identify herself as a Free Marcher.
Yeah, so she, again, this is common because you have Aveline, who is kind of this woman of the world, kind of like in her background. And we have Liliana, who's similar, like has Orlesian heritage, was raised, but considers herself Ferelden.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we see this a lot of this person raised somewhere or birthed somewhere, raised somewhere else, but they get to pick what they consider themselves as. I mean, that's Tasha's whole
that's true.
Quest. So this is a common theme in Dragon Age.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And we'll talk about Liliana later. But I also want to mention that Aveline is not a romance option. However, either male or female Hawk can flirt with her. And if you choose all flirt options throughout the game, she will kiss you and wonder if you and her could have had a relationship.
I hate it.
Really?
Yeah. Mainly just because I think that in my mind, as we're playing the game, maybe she and Hawk are like this almost the same age. Like they're close to the same age, even though Aveline has this kind of mothery like tendency. Like Hawk is more of a sibling to Aveline. So it just feels weird for any kind of romantic. I've never done it. I've never like flirted with Aveline because I've always felt that kind of like sibling-esque vibe, familial vibe between Hawk and Aveline. That I don't think I like it.
I can definitely see that. For me, I feel like a lot of Aveline's motherly tendencies are kind of put on almost. Like they're not that they're fake necessarily, but that like she's trying too hard. Like that, like she's not necessarily the mom friend. She's trying to be the mom friend when the mom friend is actually Varric. That's kind of how I look at it. And so I do hear where you're coming from. I feel like if I was Hawk and saw my friend's husband die in front of her, I don't think I could ever see her as a romance option.
Mm-hmm. I also agree with that too. And I think that's probably why she's not a romance option. I think at some point the writers of BioWare of this game kind of said like this, we have plenty of romance options. Like if we include this, we're only including it so that every companion is romanceable. Also, her not being romanceable truly gives them an excuse to be like, see, Varric's not the only one.
Oh, don't get me started. Don't get me started. All right. So my last fun fact is probably pretty common if you've been around. But if Varric writes the next chapter of Swords and Shields for Cassandra, the character on the cover greatly resembles Aveline.
No, it is just Swords and Shields. I was thinking it was Heart and Hightown also had a cover and a character that resembled Aveline.
It's not the cover that resembles Aveline in Heart and Hightown. It's that the main character in that is his name. I can't remember what his actual name is right now, but there are two guards in the Kirkwall City Guard that argue over who he's based after, because the name is so similar to both of their names. And one of them is Aveline's future potential.
Oh, Donick.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Cool.
All right. So let's get into Aveline's general backstory. So she is the daughter of an exiled chevalier named Benoit Dulac. His patron was assassinated. And so to keep his life, he flees to Ferelden when Aveline is a baby. Now, we're not really sure about her mom. And we're not really sure what the deal is there, but basically Benoit is a single dad. And so he raised Aveline on the classic fairy tale stories of knights and adventurers, hoping that she would one day become a knight herself. It may have been partially in her family history because of her dad, and we do know that she becomes a knight of sorts with the guard, but Aveline, I think, seems to have some kind of disdain for this, and for her namesake especially. If you don't remember Aveline, the name, I don't remember the last name of the original Aveline, but she's the first female chevalier. And you can look it up. We've talked about it in other episodes. It's not a happy ending. Not a happy story at all. She gets murdered. Lots of sexism there. But our Aveline that we're talking about today, she does, I think, have this disdain for that Aveline. The Codex entry says, quote, her, the original Aveline, her glory lies in tragedy, but the living Aveline doesn't revere sacrifice. A principled death is still a death. Her father was very proud of her, but she would never be the knight he wished for, end quote. Which I do and don't agree with. Like, I feel like so often we have disagreements with the Codex entry, but like, yes, she would never be a chevalier like he wanted, mostly because she was not noble nor raised in Orlais. Like, just based off the basic facts of her life, she's never going to become a chevalier because they're never going to allow it. But like, she is in multiple armies and city guards, and you know, we'll talk about some of her story later. And I just feel like she does become the knight that he wanted, just not in the way he expected.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree with that. I think like it comes down to like not only all of the reasons that you said about why she would not be a chevalier, but like even one, if they allowed women into the chevaliers, which I'm pretty sure.
I think they do. It's just very, very rare. Yeah. You have to be a noble, an Orlesian noble.
Second, even if they did consider being the daughter of a chevalier like grounds for nobility, he is an exiled chevalier.
Right.
Like, so that's another stain. Like, this would never work for her. Also, another stain against her is that she is raised most of her life in Ferelden.
Right. She's not Orlesian.
She doesn't have an Orlesian accent. She doesn't. I mean, I think you can hear a little bit when she like the way she says Vallen when she introduces herself almost sounds a little bit in that kind of French Orlesian accent. But yeah, but she is a renowned warrior. Like, I'm pretty sure that she could go on to win. She could probably win the Grand Tourney if she competed into it. Maybe.
I don't know about winning, but she could definitely get into it.
Yeah. And she obviously survives Ostagar, and she's not part of Loghain's regiment that, you know, turns their back and ran. So she fought at Ostagar and survives. So that's another kind of point in there. I think that this codex, it sounds like this codex is like when someone writes about a historical figure and assumes what they would think, rather than like, I don't think this codex is written by like, oh, my father was disappointed in me.
Yeah, I think that's a fair critique. All right. So I want to move forward from her childhood into her adolescence. And so when she was a teenager, Benoit, her father, sold everything he owned in order to sponsor her into King Caelan's army. And so she quickly rises to the ranks of officer, like she's good at her job in the army. And she stays in that army until we meet her. Well, until right before we meet her in Dragon Age 2. But I want to go back a little bit because while she serves in Ferelden's army, she met and married the Templar Wesley. So we don't really know a ton about Wesley, but we know that they were very much kindred spirits who loved each other dearly and they were madly in love. They were kind of each other's soulmate.
Right. I don't think I realized this in there because time is weird in Dragon Age Origins. How much time has passed while things go on. And it's even worse in Dragon Age 2 because you're dealing with the time skips. I don't think Wesley and Aveline, they cannot have been married more than a year when he dies because they meet when she joined Caelan's army. I thought this was the army that was going to battle.
No. She joins Ferelden's army at the behest of King Caelan. Yeah, so it's not that they meet while they're preparing for the Battle of Ostagar. It's that they meet just while they're both serving in Ferelden under the leadership of King Caelan sometime before the Battle of Ostagar. We're not really sure exactly the dates on that. But you're right. It could be, as little as a year. It could be, I feel like it's probably more than that. Several. I wouldn't say more than 5, though.
Right, I guess that's fair. And, Caelan is a young king, and the calling takes place when Caelan is, I assume, almost under 10 because they refer to him as this boy.
Yeah, I don't remember his exact age, but he is pretty young. But anyway, so they loved each other dearly, and they both were at the Battle of Ostagar. And so they both fled the Darkspawn Horde when Loghain did his betrayal, as we know. And Aveline was actually commanding troops. She had troops under her command. And so she ordered them to scatter and make their way home. Find a safe place if you can. So after she commands her troops to, scatter, find safety if they can, they make their way to Lothering, which, as we know, is around where they meet Hawke. And so the Hawks are fleeing Lothering. Wesley and Aveline are battling a group of Darkspawn. And that's how they meet. And while they are fighting these Darkspawn, Wesley gets injured by a Hurlock, but Aveline saves him. Later on, when Flemeth saves the group, she reveals that Wesley has contracted the Darkspawn taint from this injury. And obviously, Aveline is heartbroken because they all know that this means death. And so either Aveline or Hawke can then grant him this release of death. And Aveline becomes Hawke's second permanent companion after their sibling. One of their siblings, whichever one you are. Mm-hmm. So it is a really heartbreaking scene, I think, to see Wesley die. But I really feel like this scene shows you how much she loved him. She's obviously very moved, but also they're in the midst of a war, and she knows that they've got to move on. They've got to keep going. They can't just hang around here for forever. And so all of this happens, and that's pretty much the end of the prologue of Dragon Age 2.
Yeah. I will say this, that with Wesley and his death is that I think you can see it coming from a mile away.
Oh, 100%.
Especially if you've played BioWare games, and when you join them, you see that you get Aveline as a companion, but you don't get Wesley as a companion.
True.
And so you're just okay.
What's happening here? Are you going to fail the calling or the joining or just get killed? Those are kind of the two options here.
And the other part of this is it also doesn't make sense because you have a mage, a warrior in Bethany and Carver, and then you get another warrior in Aveline, and then you're going to have another warrior in the Templar. I just saw it coming, but I also think it is teased narratively. But
that doesn't make it less sad.
It doesn't make it less sad. I will acknowledge that, for example, in Assassin's Creed Shadows, there's a death early on that you can very obviously see coming in the flashbacks.
Yes.
And it's still very sad.
I will say with Assassin's Creed Shadows, there was one scene I got where I was like, oh, this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen, and then he's going to do this, this, and this. And that immediately happened, and you were so done with me.
I was.
So that's just how video games, that's just how stories work. Like, sometimes they just are like that. All right, well, I think now that we're at like the end of the prologue for Dragon Age 2 would be a good time to go to our mid-break.
All right, let's do it.
The new McCrispy Strip is here. Dip approved by ketchup, tangy barbecue, honey mustard, Sprite, McFlurry, Big Mac sauce, double dipped in buffalo and ranch, more ranch, and creamy chili McCrispy Strip Dip. Now at McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
You're the perfect blend of elegance and style, and your ride should be no different. The 2024 Hyundai Sonata Hybrid meets all your needs, from business to brunch and everywhere in between. With head-turning details like a sleek front end, plus stylish interior, and an available 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster and seamless tech integration. Okay, Hyundai. Visit HyundaiUSA.com to learn more about the new 2024 Hyundai Sonata Hybrid.
Switch to Verizon Business and get more from your internet without paying more for your internet. Get LTE Business Internet starting at $39 a month when paired with select business mobile plans. That's unlimited data, and with it, unlimited possibilities. Start saving today with Verizon Business, ranked #1 in small business internet customer satisfaction by J.D. Power. Starting price for 25 megabits per second LTE internet plan with smartphone plan savings, plus taxes, fees, and economic adjustment charge. Terms apply. For J.D. Power 2024 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
I went to Kirkwall once. Yeah? Bit of a shithole. Yeah.
Well, tell me, have you ever licked a lamppost in winter?
What do you think Rook's like in person? Do you think they smell nice?
What is wrong with you? And have you forgotten which side you're on?
No. I mean, think about if we could turn them. Riding beside Rook at the head of Devinter's vast armies. I could stab them for you, on the house.
All right, so welcome to the middle of the show where we take time to thank our patrons. Thank you so much to all of our patrons. We had a great patron chat last week. If you want to go hear some unhinged takes on our Hear Me Out Cake Dragon Age edition, spoiler for you, Austin is the most unhinged. I am the most unhinged, which I don't think anyone saw coming, even me. But yeah, if you want to sign up on Patreon, you can do that. Special thank you to our first patrons, Genesis and Lisa M. If you can't support us on Patreon, we understand that. A great way to support us is to leave us ratings and reviews on Apple or Spotify. If you leave us 5 stars and some kind words, we will read your comment or review on a future episode of the show. And lastly, come join us on Discord where we talk about Dragon Age, the Veilguard, all our crazy theories, all kinds of things. If you've got a question, that's the place to have it. The Cups Podcasting and More Discord server. All right. And with that, we can get back into the episode.
All right, let's do it.
My cat Freddie loves to be brushed and cuddled. But stirring up his cat allergens meant sneezing and itchy eyes. Then I found Purina One Live Clear. It's cat food that reduced the major allergen and my suffering in as little as 21 days. Now, we feel closer than ever. If you have issues with cat allergens, you really need to try Purina One Live Clear.
Try new Purina One Live Clear today. Purina One, a difference from day one.
It's almost Mother's Day, and you can now get anything you need delivered with Uber Eats. Well, almost anything. So no, you can't order a relaxing shower, but some beautiful flowers, you bet we deliver those. A bird bath? No. A bath bomb? Absolutely. It's no to a chocolate lab, but yes to some chocolate truffles. So whether it's a last-minute gift for Mother's Day, fresh groceries, or food from your favorite restaurants, get it delivered today with Uber Eats. Order now. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
Here at the Almond Joy Factory, where tropical vibes abound, we use soft, fresh-tasting coconut.
The crunchiest almonds and delicious chocolate candy.
Ah, but do you know what our most important ingredient is? Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
Almond Joy's got nuts and something even way better than that. Yes, Almond Joy is made with almonds and joy.
Don't Templars have anything better to do than come up with new ways to torment mages?
No. Again, I'm so sorry Manfred keeps wandering in while you're asleep, Lucanus.
I think he wonders about spite. Curiosity has feet. We have enough feet already. It has feet.
You fear barbarians will swoop down upon you.
Yes, swooping is
Okay, so let's get into her involvement in Dragon Age 2. So after Hawke and the crew make it to Kirkwall, Aveline quickly joins the city guard. This is where she promptly uncovers a conspiracy theory involving the current captain of the city guard. Eventually, with Hawke's help, they work it out. It's a whole quest, but the current captain is eventually arrested by his own men, and they make Aveline the new captain of the guard. So she remains guard captain throughout the rest of the game, but by Act 2, there are already complaints of the requirements of the job. And so the guards are really spread thin, the Viscount is weak, she doesn't really have the funds or the resources needed for the job, and basically the Templars, of which there are many, refuse to help with anything non-magical since they find it, quote-unquote, demeaning. Nonetheless, despite these struggles, Aveline is a very popular guard captain, and the men have rallied under her leadership. So we know that at some point she is a good leader because she faces all these challenges, and yet she's still able to inspire the men, and that are men and women, and that's commendable. It's at this time that Aveline can also potentially begin a relationship with guardsman Donick Hinder. And eventually she can even get married to him at the Hawke estate. But if Hawke doesn't really help with this quest, Aveline will remain single. So there's a little bit of choice in that.
Yeah. I love Aveline and Donick. I do it every time. I just really like them together.
Okay. We can talk about this now. Because I kind of think it's unethical. She's the leader of the guard and he's just a regular guardsman. And I just feel like there's some ethical boundaries there with their relationship. They're not on equal footing. She's his boss. It's not a great place to begin a relationship. And not only that, but she does it in such a way that she's so awkward that he's confused and doesn't understand if she's trying to come on to him or if she's forcing him to do stuff. There's just a lot, in my opinion, of this is kind of icky to me.
Yeah, I definitely see that. This was the first Dragon Age game I played. I don't know if you knew that. The first time I played this, I didn't have as robust of an understanding of power dynamics as I do now.
Sure.
So I definitely agree with that kind of there and see how that kind of comes on. I do think that later in the game, if you continue the relationship, it seems that Aveline does try to maintain those boundaries of she doesn't give him special treatment. She doesn't do anything like that.
That we see.
At least, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. And I mean, it's not a one-to-world comparison to our world, but a president was impeached for sleeping with his intern in our world. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's just when you are in charge of a lot of people, I think that you have to be careful about these kinds of things. And I'm not sure BioWare would write this today either. But also, I'm just kind of the opinion that I don't think Aveline needed to move on from Wesley. I think that her story could have easily been she found love and she found, contentment and satisfaction in her friendships and in her work. You don't necessarily, if you are a widow, or a widower, you don't necessarily need to move on from the death of your spouse and vice versa. You also don't have to not move on, So I do appreciate that there's at least a choice here.
Yes, there is the choice. And I think for another point that people, and this is why I said time in this game is really weird, because I believe the biggest time jump is between Act 1 and 2.
It's 5 years between 1 and 2, right?
Yeah, and then it's 3 or something like that between
2 and 3. I think you're right.
Yeah, and so it's not a long time for us. Like Wesley's death to starting the relationship is not a long time for us, but it is a lot longer for Aveline.
True.
And she is fairly young. Like it's not like she was old and
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a great point. But I do want to move us on a little bit because we could probably keep talking about this forever. But Aveline will recruit Hawk's help in solving multiple crimes, such as arresting fugitive elves and investigating a series of murders that ends in Leandra Hawk's death. And depending on her relationship with Hawk, by the end of Dragon Age 2, Aveline can either be very proud of her accomplishments with the city guard, or she can be plagued with doubt and super disillusioned.
Also, so I saw a post one time on either Dragon Age Reddit or Twitter, and it was talking about why does Aveline recruit Hawk to do all of these like guardsman kind of things for him, assist with all of these like investigations and everything like that. And the poster that commented on this basically said that Hawk is Aveline's criminal informant, especially a mage Hawk who is an apostate. Like similar to how police departments or whatever would strike deals with criminals or whatever to get information on other going-ons in the world. Like they're saying Hawk fills this role for Aveline, and so it might also explain Hawk's protection from the Templars if they are a mage apostate.
I definitely agree with that. And it makes Anders' hostility in these situations make more sense too.
Yes, very much so.
So I want to talk about differences a little bit between the rival and friendship with Hawk and Aveline. So when you have a rival relationship with Hawk, Aveline is stricter and more demanding of the guard, and she focuses on maintaining its reputation as a competent and respectable police force. Whereas when Aveline has a friendship with Hawk, she is a force of order and stability for the guard, but she's more focused on promoting from within and allowing guards to be healthy and choose their own patrols and just generally inspiring a more positive police force. And so I definitely think a rival relationship with Hawk inspires Aveline to be harsher, and I think there's more of a tendency to be kind of that like stereotypical police officer who is unethical and power hungry.
Yeah, I definitely see that I feel like a rivaled Aveline in this is more along the lines of like, I am only worried about maintaining law and order, and I'm not really considering like the individual people that are there. Is the law, you either obey it or you break it.
Yeah.
And friendship Aveline is very much more of like, no, these guardsmen are people. Like they need to have robust lives. They need to be nurtured and cared for just as much in those kind of things. It's so funny to me because I feel like friendship Aveline accomplishes what rival Aveline is trying to maintain.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And I definitely think it's a difference between like the traditional view of policing versus the more like community-based policing where like, your police officers live in your community and they're part of your neighborhoods and like are normal people that live next to you and know you. And that's supposed to like help with brutality and ethics and all that kind of stuff. So I definitely that's how I see that. Yeah. I want to skip to the end a little bit because Aveline can be convinced to support Hawk in siding with either the mages or the Templars at the end. However, no matter what, she will disapprove of allowing Anders to live.
Yeah, I just think that there can be like a little bit of gray inserted into Aveline's worldview, but the truth of the matter is like Aveline hates Meredith, and she doesn't like Orsino or the mages very much either. But at the end of the day, Anders attacked her city, in which by Act 3, she personally feels a need to protect the citizens of that city. And I think that's the big breaking point for Aveline with Anders is that, and my breaking point with Anders too, is that he harms the people he's trying to protect.
Yeah, no, absolutely 100% agree. And also I think that there is a lot of resentment, even though the guards are, probably ideologically closest to the Templars, there's a lot of resentment from the guards toward the Templars because the Templars refuse to help them with anything that's quote unquote non-magical. And so I would imagine that makes them a little bit less inclined to help them in this situation.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it would be like if, the Pope, which I guess they technically do, but like the Vatican had its own kind of police force and it refused to cooperate with anything in Rome or in Italy at all.
Right. Or like when the FBI gets called in to a murder in whatever town and the local police force refuses to cooperate with them, which happens all the time. The victims are the ones that get screwed over. So anyway, so that's Dragon Age 2 and her involvement. We do have some more involvement, but I want to take a pause here and see if you had any final thoughts on Dragon Age 2.
I really do think that Aveline makes Dragon Age 2 a little bit. She has some of the best banter with some of the other companions. I'm sure we're gonna talk about this. And maybe here, but with Isabella, and I think that Isabella just can manipulate and push Aveline in all the ways, and Aveline falls into the bait every single time.
Yeah. And I think Aveline takes it too far, personally.
I also agree.
And I also think, I'm sorry, I have to disagree with you, but I feel like Aveline is forgettable. I don't necessarily think the storylines with the guards are forgettable. I don't think you could take those out and have it be the same game, especially the quests with Leandra and just with the Templars in general. But I very much feel like you could sub out Aveline for any other character in those quests, and it really wouldn't make that much of a difference.
It would make a difference to me.
No, I hear you. Especially if you love the character. I get that. But I just feel like it's just, I don't know. She's just not that memorable for me.
I think Aveline in this thing is a grain of sand of order on the beach of chaos. So in a lot of ways that could make her stand out. See, I think Sebastian is forgettable.
Oh, I 100% agree with that. I'm not arguing.
He's a DLC character, so he wasn't really in the game to begin with.
No, that's
anyway.
fair.
But I also just kind of come to the point of Aveline provides a necessary balance to the Dragon Age 2 party, because otherwise it is, if you take out Aveline, you have a bunch of people that are super sympathetic to mages. And I know Varric isn't super pro mage, but the rest of them are.
Well, Fenris isn't.
Fenris. But Fenris kind of remains that only kind of pillar with there. And I think without Aveline, again, Aveline and Fenris serve as this argument for yes, Meredith is crazy, but mages aren't all innocent. I feel like they give to that narrative. Otherwise, I think that Dragon Age 2 would completely go along the lines of, and has in a lot of ways for people who don't really dive into the nuance of, oh, mages can do no wrong. Because look at Kirkwall and do that.
I understand where you're coming from. 100%. Totally agree. I'm just saying that I think you could take Aveline out and slot in another pro-Templar character and we would be none the wiser. Let's just pretend Cassandra gets sent to Kirkwall and she's there for the whole events of the game instead of just having these flash forwards into the future, and she somehow is in this position instead. She's more pro Templar than she is mage. You know, I just feel like Aveline's story outside of the prologue, her personal story, is not integral to the plot in the same ways that Varric's and Isabella and Fenris and Anders and even Meryl's are.
I mean, yeah, I guess.
You just want to disagree with me because you like the character.
No, I just don't think that she's that forgettable. I think if you didn't... Okay, using someone like Cassandra, where we come into this point of, like, we would see her in these flash forwards trying to interrogate Varric, which would make no sense. Why? Because she would have been
I know,
there.
it was just an example.
But, like, you're taking someone and putting that someone that we are very memorable with. It's like saying something of the lines like, replace Aveline with Donick. And you say that we'd be none the wiser.
Sure. I agree with that, too.
I disagree with that. Because...
I think you're blinded.
No, I think you need to play Dragon Age 2 again.
I mean, I'm not opposed to that. But... I just think that she's not as integral to the overarching plot of the story, personally.
But you see, it is Aveline who comes and consults Hawke after Leandra's death. It is Aveline that is first there.
It's also Aveline who's kind of responsible for Leandra's death because she doesn't really follow up on the murder accusations.
That's not true.
I mean, she does, but then she's like, oh, well, there's not enough evidence, so we have to disregard it.
Right, but they don't ever catch that. They don't ever meet the actual, like Quentin, they don't ever meet him or find him. It's not like they let the killer get away.
No, they don't let him get away, but like they're not actively searching for him anymore. She's like basically like, well, we didn't catch him, so we have to call off the investigation.
Because the trail goes cold. I mean, that happens in police work all the time. I don't think you can blame Aveline for Leandra's death.
I think
Leandra isn't honest about all of the signs of her suitors, so Hawke is not able to piece together
That's fair.
What has happened.
That
is something else. I think if we're going to blame anyone for Leandra's death, it's Orsino.
I'm not disagreeing with that, and I'm not saying that Aveline is totally responsible, but I am saying that like she's not this bastion of goodness that you're sitting there proclaiming she is.
I'm not saying she's a bastion of goodness. I am arguing for her integralness to the freaking game that she's in. So it is Aveline who tries to look after the Hawke sibling. Like, this is Aveline who tries to find places. Like, she is the one who denies Carver a point to come into the guard because she knows that he would be bad at it. Like, she is trying to take care of that point. Aveline is the one who, is working to basically keep Hawke informed on what's going on with the Qunari. It is Aveline who comes and gets Hawke for the confrontation between Orsino and Meredith that finally brings everything down. Like, I think you need to replay Dragon Age 2 because I think Aveline is forgettable because you are forgetting the things that she is integral to.
I don't agree that I've forgotten everything about Dragon Age 2, seeing as how I did the research for this, but I definitely hear what you're saying, and I'm not saying that she's not important to the story, but I do think we just need to kind of move on from here because we do have 2 more games to get through, so. All right, so I think we've exhausted the conversation on Dragon Age 2, so I'm going to move us along to Dragon Age Inquisition, where you can ask Varric about Aveline's fate, and he will tell you that she is still the guard captain, and that she is still responsible, and is pretty much the only one responsible for Kirkwall's relative peace and stability. It has also been revealed in Inquisition that she's formed and leads a Kirkwall citizens militia that defends the city from foreign occupation, which is relevant if you spare Anders and Sebastian leads an invasion of the city to find him. But by the time of Trespasser, Aveline is still guard captain and Varric has become her boss as Viscount.
Boss is a loose term in this.
Quotation marks around boss for sure. I do want to say, my issues with Aveline in Dragon Age 2, that she's forgettable by the time of Dragon Age Inquisition, like that's not the case anymore. I just wish we got to see some of this stuff.
Yeah, I definitely agree and can see that. Like, she does have so much more relevance to this. And like, if you read the war table operations or whatever surrounding Starkhaven and Sebastian's attempt to either invade the city or annex the city, it's just like, oh, Aveline is basically like being like, it's kind of those moments of like, okay, you have a friend you grew up with playing on the ball field with or whatever, and other things like that. And then they grow up to this big executive and you're like, I watched you eat dirt. Like that is the, like, feel like the relationship between Aveline and Sebastian.
That's very fair, I think. So let's just keep it moving and look at the Veil Guard. So by this point, Aveline is appointed as acting Viscount to replace Varric. Kirkwall and the rest of the Free Marches have obviously suffered greatly from the spreading blight from Elgar'nan and Gillenane, and so as acting Viscount, Aveline leads the evacuation of Kirkwall. She takes the people and what's left of her army to help Prince Sebastian Vale keep Starkhaven. And so, I mean, I think by the time of Veilguard, like, she's really realized her full potential.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think we see a little bit of that because she is so determined to protect the people of Kirkwall, even to the point of taking them to Starkhaven, to someone who I would say that, given even the best scenario, which I think for their relationship is that Anders is dead and he's trying to annex them, is like, I find you slightly annoying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like they're definitely not, they're only friends because of Hawke, if that. And I think most Hawks are not necessarily friends with Sebastian anyway, so.
Yeah. I think Sebastian is really only involved because Hawke is helping them track down the murderers of his family.
Yeah.
And that's really it. Like, I think that all of the companions use Hawke as a means to the end, but most of them, given the circumstances, can become like, oh, I'm in here. I started trying to use you to get my own goals met, but like now we're friends. Like, I think all the companions except for Sebastian get to that point.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. He's the one that definitely gets there the least. So I do have a few quotes before we get into some characteristics and discussion. So the first one is that the people of Kirkwall need to see themselves in their guard. You lose that connection, we're just targets. The second quote, which is going to be where I referred to Liliana earlier, Aveline says, quote, I'm uncomfortable around Chantry sisters, all because of that red-haired trickster in Lothering. Obviously referring to Liliana.
Exactly. I wonder, I can't remember if, because I can never remember the interaction, like, because obviously I feel like Hawke, and Liliana will say this if you ask her about Hawke, that like, oh, I didn't know the oldest Hawke as well, but I knew the twins.
Yeah.
And you obviously can't take the surviving sibling to meet Liliana because they're either dead in the Circle Templars or with the Grey Wardens. But I feel like I don't remember Aveline having a comment when she sees Liliana. But I think it's really funny that she calls her a red-haired trickster when she also has
the same hair. Yeah, I know. And then the last one I have, which is about her dad, she says, that big man made every step of the story my choice. I loved that. Which I do think, you know, not always something that every character gets to say is their parent, you know?
Yeah, I think a lot of times, there's not a lot of times that characters can say something about like their big, strong dad also being like this, what some might consider like soft.
Yeah. And also like not every regular quote unquote working class, quote unquote, not necessarily peasant, but just like regular people who get to say, yes, I was able to make every decision for myself. That's not very common.
No, not common at all.
All right, so we're coming in on the end, and I've got some characteristics and then a discussion question. So I feel like Aveline's characteristics are that she's loyal, she's disciplined, driven by duty, moral, she's straightforward and very blunt, romantically awkward, and I also think she's a little bit emotionally guarded, which does make sense given everything that she's gone through with her husband.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think she's definitely emotionally guarded at the start, which makes sense because she's trying to adjust and figure out like what her new normal is.
Yeah, fair. All right, so my discussion question is Aveline a problematic cop? Yes or no? So I have some points here. And some of these are like, yeah, she's just problematic, not necessarily all about the cop. So like we can kind of separate that a little bit. But like some of my things are like, so she seduces a guardsman who's under her command, which we've already discussed. She blocks Carver from joining the guard, arguably for good reasons, but like, is that the right thing to do? She doesn't take Emmerich's murder investigation seriously, according to some. I don't necessarily fully agree with this, like we discussed earlier, because she did investigate and she just didn't find the evidence. But like, if this was your friend, possibly at the point that you know your friend's parent is involved in this, like, wouldn't you be a little bit more aggressive in investigating, would be my question. And then she's pretty sexist to Isabella. I can't remember exactly what it is that Isabella says to her that prompts Aveline to call Isabella a whore, but it's like not on the same level at all.
Yeah.
So
it's very jarring. I can't remember exactly what it is, but they're trading insults. And like the thing about it is that Isabella pokes and prods at Aveline the same way she does everyone. The comments with Fenris's tattoos or other things, and not that Isabella is free of all problematic things, because as we've discussed on her character deep dive, there are plenty.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes I wonder, and I do think that it is rooted in kind of like a sexist ideology in this. I sometimes wonder if, not that Isabella represents this ideal, but I feel like Aveline has such trouble expressing her romantic interest, expressing like her feelings or everything like that, or even like a semblance of sexuality for whatever reasons. I don't think she necessarily was raised in this like rigid, like, you know, household of that, but I think Isabella represents like that idea of fully living into that sexuality. And I think that it's something Aveline wants, maybe not to that degree, but she wants, but she's never felt like it's proper for her, so she feels the need then to demean Isabella for that. But it's kind of like this projection thing of like she actually wants to have some of that taste of freedom.
I think I can definitely agree with that. And I just find it ironic though, because Aveline got married so young and like was probably sexual, not before Isabella, but like younger than many of the companions, possibly. Like she got married very young, probably when she was still a teenager. And so it's just like, you've been sexual. Like, why is this a hang up for you? So I find that odd, but I mean, I don't necessarily think that it's so odd that it's outside the bounds of the character. I think it makes sense. And I think there are people in our world that are like that too. Mm-hmm. I think it's a very normal and natural dichotomy for people to live in. But back to the question of like, is Aveline a problematic cop? I think she does problematic things as the captain of the guard, especially related to Donick and their romance. And I mean, I think we have to be realistic here that like she turns a blind eye to a lot of the things that Hawk and the crew do. Like she knows crimes are being committed every day in the game and does nothing about it. I mean, we have to acknowledge that. I don't think that makes her a bad person. I don't think that she is just a completely like unhinged like guard that is like committing police brutality every day. I definitely don't think she's there, but I do think she does some unethical things.
Definitely. And like, I think this is also just a gameplay mechanic or whatever, but like Hawk basically joins a criminal syndicate no matter which way you do. Like Aveline goes and joins the guard and Hawk joins
the coterie or the
mercenaries or whatever.
Yeah.
And smugglers or mercenaries. And then that person tries to basically bring you up to do more crime. And you can do more crime with Aveline present, who also does the crime.
Right.
So it's interesting. I mean, she will disapprove and will say things like that. But it comes to the point of like, it's similar to the point of, at least like in Mass Effect, Garrus like leaves C-Sec to go with Shepard.
Right.
Like, but then like Shepard also commits a lot of crimes.
True.
Like, but I do think there is this like kind of plot armor that exists around Hawk of like,
they can do no wrong. Nothing they do is a crime.
I abhor blood magic. Turns around
is a blood mage. Yeah, no, that's fair. And I do think a lot of it is gameplay, but I think that there is something to be said for some of Aveline's unethical behavior.
Yes, I definitely agree. And I do think that the power dynamics between her and Donick are not great. And then furthermore, I think that Kirkwall is such a beast. And I think that sometimes it is underestimated maybe a little bit of how much of a shit show she walked in with an even more corrupt captain of the guard.
Yeah.
And so trying to manage that without, ripping the whole thing down. And the fact that Hawk is useful for taking down larger threats.
True. And I also think when you have a city that is so just mired in crime and everything is a mess, like Kirkwall, you can't really clean it up without getting your hands dirty.
Right. Like even the high town nobles are criminals in a lot of ways. Like, everyone in Kirkwall is a criminal.
Nobody in Kirkwall has clean hands. Like nobody in Kirkwall, none of those guardsmen or women are quote unquote ethical cops, which is a little bit of a misnomer in and of itself, but we won't go there.
So do you want to know, this is kind of a little bit off topic and we can wrap up after this, but do you want to know something funny?
Yeah.
After playing Dragon Age 2, whenever I read the story of Jonah and
in the Bible?
Yeah, and think of Nineveh, I think of Kirkwall.
Man, they're very similar. I can see it for sure.
Though I don't even know if Nineveh is a sea town. I assume that is. I assume by the story.
He gets on a boat and gets swallowed by a whale. So like it has to be close to the water.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
But anyway, so before we do wrap it up, just want to, say why we love or hate this character.
I like Aveline, like I said earlier. I think she provides a necessary counterbalance to the pro mage stance in Dragon Age 2, which I will admit that Dragon Age 2 does yield very pro mage. So I do think that that's an important thing. I also like Aveline in the just the kind of, I like the counter and the opposite that she provides to the game.
I do agree with you. She provides an important relief for some of the pro mage and just some of the heaviness. But for me, like we've already discussed and argued, gone back and forth about, I do kind of think she's a mid character. She's not one that really stands out to me either way. She's not one that would ever rank in my favorites or even my B tier list personally. She's just fine. Like, I don't hate her. I don't love her. She's just in the middle.
Yeah. I can respect that. I mean, there are very few actual companions that will say, oh, we hate this person.
Yeah, it's like Augur and Sebastian and Carver.
Yeah. And even then, I feel bad for Augur in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Sebastian is probably one of the ones that I'm like, oh. And it's because I've known real life Sebastians.
Yeah, me too.
And so that's part of it. But yeah, I mean, there's even, as you'll hear it now, Anders, Solus, all these people that I rave against, I don't hate them.
Mm-hmm.
I feel bad for Anders and I'm frustrated by Anders because Anders, and I think this is one of the beautiful things about his writing, is I want Anders, every time I play the game, I want Anders to make a different choice.
Mm-hmm. You want him to be better than what you inevitably know is going to happen.
Yes, I want him to choose something different. It's the same way I love Anakin Skywalker.
That's fair. I do want to just close this up by saying, noting for the listeners, it's rare that we disagree so much on a character. I feel like we have never had a character that we really disagree on this much. And I feel like we didn't even really disagree that much. It's just like odd because normally we're both on pretty much the same page, or if we're disagreeing just to have both sides of the argument represented.
Yeah. So just know that it is a video game, and at the end of the day, whether or not we like Aveline or not doesn't matter.
Yeah, don't get your panties in a wad, people. All right, well, I think we're ready to wrap it up.
All right, well, thank you so much for bringing this research and the robust discussion. Always fun. Thank you all for listening to the Dragon Age Lorecast. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Dragon Age Lorecast. You can find us on Twitter at DALorecast.
If you have any lore questions, topics to unpack, or side character suggestions, join our Cups Podcasting and More Discord server. It's easily the best place on the internet. You can also support us financially through our Patreon. You can find us there on patreon.com/DragonAgeLorecast.
The Dragon Age Lorecast is part of the Robots Radio Network. For more information about the Robots Radio Network, join the Discord server via the link in our episode description.
If you enjoyed the show or learned something new today, please subscribe, leave us a review, and join the Patreon. And if you enjoyed our intro and outro music, give a big thank you to Pipeman Studios. Thank you, Pipeman. Thanks again for listening to the Dragon Age Lorecast. We'll see you next time.
Are you a fan of Elden Ring? Are you confused about the lore as pretty much everyone else? We've got you covered. Check out the Elden Archives, a lore podcast that helps to explain every little confusing detail about the lands between. Things like what exactly happened on the Night of the Black Knives, or what we really know about characters like Mikola. Just like the show you're listening to now, we're on the Robots Radio Network, so you know it'll be good. Wondering how to find the show? Easy. Either go to robotsradio.net or search Elden Archives on whatever podcatcher you're using right now. Bookmark the show for later, and we'll see you in the lands between. Again, that's The Elden Archives, a FromSoft Lorecast available everywhere.